everyone. So first off, really sorry about the face and hair during this entire video. I was running around with my nephews this weekend. It was kind of a whirlwind day and I didn't get time to do all my makeup or really do my hair properly, and I just went into saw myself in the mirror and I was like, wow, really? Wow, that's crazy, but we're still gonna make a video. But to make up for it, we are going to be laying out the rest of our pattern pieces, cutting everything out, marking it up, because there's a few that we didn't do in the last dress, so I'll address those. And we're going to start the we're going to do the gather stitch. So let's go ahead and get started. So these are the dart that we have to mark. And as you can see, we've got the lines and then little circles. So I thought it would be difficult to try and trace these darts and those dots just using a marking pencil. So what I did is I went and bought Dressmaker's tracing paper, which comes in a bunch of different colors. So this side is red. And essentially what you do is you place this between the pattern and your fabric, and then you get a tracing wheel. Sometimes they come with little bumps on them, and you just trace over the lines. What I found though is you do have to, instead of just pressing like once, I actually press and go back and forth a couple times to make sure that the color transfers onto the fabric, because the lines are very thin and for me a little bit hard to see, so I just want to make sure that I get those nice on there. And then all I do is, leaving the tracing paper in there, I take my tracing pencil and I just do the little circles, so that'll transfer the color as well. Okay, so there's a couple things I want to show you on pattern piece number 7. You'll see that on here it says for left side. For left side, there is no real markings for what the left side would be, but this is a skirt back, so the left side is actually going to be the side that is immediately underneath the pattern piece. So what I did was, when I cut it, I made sure to cut just the one layer of fabric. And then as well as here, there was another marking for left side. So again, I just am going to make the marking on this side, not the other side of the fabric. Now, we've already gone ahead and done this pattern layout and cut all these pieces out, notched them, marked them. So all of this is good. So what we're going to concentrate on now is the fabric that we have left, we're going to use to cut these 3 pieces out. Now, notice how piece 1 and 2 show, right side of the pattern up, the other side of the pattern down. What this is going to mean is that we're going to take our fabric and actually fold it and then cut this out. I'm going to actually walk you through this because this gets a little bit confusing on how this is cut out. So I'm going to walk you through this so you know what it is that I'm talking about. We are laying out the remaining fabric, and we have our selvages here and down here, and then our cut edges are here. And then what you want to do is you want to take pattern piece 1, and it just wants you to make sure that you have enough fabric left to fit pattern piece 1 going all the way across the fabric. Same with pattern piece 2. So now what we're going to do is we're going to fold our piece of fabric, and we're going to fold it selvage to selvage. Then we're going to take pattern piece number 1, and it does say to cut on the fold, and here it says center front unfold, so we know that we're going to lay this end right onto the fold. And number 2 says to cut on fold as well, so we're going to lay that right there. Number 5 shows grain lines at an angle. So what that means is that we want this piece to lay so that that arrow runs parallel with our grain lines, so going selvage to fold. because we are actually cutting this on what's called the bias. Now what I'm going to do is pin these pieces down, and then I'm going to cut them out and also make any pattern markings and also any notches cut out of the pattern pieces. And now you will notice I have all this extra fabric left over here, and that's because when I get my fabric I always get a little additional, just because I know that I'm going to be playing with the sizing, and I never want to be too short of fabric, so I always tend to get like an 1/8 to 1/4 more fabric. So if you are going to be enlarging pieces, you may want to consider that as well, just for that reason, because one of the things with fabric, if it doesn't come off the same bolt, there is the chance that your colorations in your fabric can be different. All of my pattern pieces are laid out, cut out, marked, and notched. I also mark each section of fabric that I cut out with the pattern piece number, so that way I don't get confused. Alright, so we are actually ready to start sewing, and we are going to start with piece number 1. What we're going to do with piece number 1 is we are going to gather the upper and lower edges of this piece between the 2 marked areas. Okay, so let's walk through the gathering of the top and the bottom of this. Alright, so my machine is all threaded with black thread. With gathering, they usually recommend to change your tension and also your stitch length. Now, I don't like to mess with my tension too much, so I'm going to go ahead and leave it where it is. My stitch length, I'm going to move this all the way up the top. I want my stitch to be as long as possible. Now, the other thing that you're going to want to do before you start your gather stitch is make sure that you have a really long tail on it. One thing I wanted to show you on my machine is what I did, since 5/8 of an inch seam allowance is the most common. I've gone ahead and laid a piece of tape on my plate here so that I know without thinking about tick marks exactly where 5/8 is. So I know right butting up against this piece of tape is where 5/8 of an inch seam allowance is. And what I like to do is I like to put a pin in where the marks are made with the tailor's chalk, just because that tailor's chalk is really hard for me to see, so it's a lot easier to know when I hit the pin that is where the tick mark is. Okay, you want to give those fairly long tails. And then the first stitch we're going to make at 5/8 of an inch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to guide my needle down until I'm right where I want to be, and then put my foot down. And then I'm just going to start to stitch. And then when I approach the end, I just want to manually turn my needle again until I reach exactly my end. And then I'm going to pull the fabric out, give it a long tail, and then snip. Long tail. Now the next stitch that we're going to do is going to be 1/4 of an inch inside the stitch that we just made. So we want to be inside the seam allowance. And 1/4 of an inch away is going to be this very first tick mark on our plate. Again, bringing my needle down into place, foot down, and then begin stitching. And then my last couple moves are going to be manually done. The foot up out of the fabric, long tail, and clip. Gather stitches are in. What I like to do, even though we're not quite ready to actually gather the fabric, is I like to prepare it. So what you're going to do, at the end of every stitch that you made, you should have 4 pieces of thread. You're going to gather those 4 pieces of thread together, and then you're going to take one of your pins and you're going to place it into the fabric. Now, this rayon is very slippery, so these pins tend to slip out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to double dip into the fabric with the pin, and that will make it so it won't sneak out on me. Now what I'm going to do with my thread ends is wrap them around the pin that I just put in a figure 8 pattern. And what this does is it provides an anchor, so when we start actually gathering, the stitches stay anchored at the pin. And I just wrap that around a couple times. Now we're going to do the same thing to the top. Okay, and then the other end of your fabric, go ahead and just leave the stitches loose. You're not going to do the figure 8 pattern because that's the side we're actually going to pull from to begin the gathers. So let's set this aside. That is it for today. So I'd love to hear from you guys in the comment section below. How do you trace things like darts? Do you use tracing paper, or do you have any other neat little tricks to do that? And if you haven't already done so and you want to know when new videos are posted, you can click that subscribe button completely free, and it'll let you know when new sewing videos or hair tutorials or random videos are up. And as always, a great way to show your support of a vintage vanity is to clickety thumb up, clickety thumbs, clickety thumbs. It is really late, you guys. I'm so tired. Words, English is hard. Alright, so I hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you soon. Bye!